Zoning and Comprehensive Plan meeting for June 21st, 2023, and I've got 9:33 on the clock. Thank you very much, sir. This morning, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. This morning, I want to announce first that the comprehensive plan amendment related to building height and resiliency, that transmittal hearing, was continued yesterday at the Lee County Board of County Commissioners meeting. So we will not be hearing that. That's the fourth item on the agenda for today. The other two items, I'm going to go ahead and take Pratt's Preserve and Barrett Park, and then the Greenwell case will be the final case for the day today. So at this time, I'd like to ask our staff to introduce the Pratt's Preserve case.
Commissioners, good morning. Dirk Danley, Lee County Zoning. The first case before you today is Pratt's Preserve, as you said, DCI 2022-55. The case is to rezone approximately 26.7 acres from residential plan development and agricultural to residential plan development to allow up to 135 dwelling units. The hearing examiner did recommend approval with conditions, and there were no participants of record. The staff and the applicant are here with any questions you may have.
Very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this case at all? Okay, I see no questions. Would the applicant like to come forward and make a presentation?
Neil Montgomery for the record. No, sir. We're adding 8 acres to a project you approved last year and liked and is underway. So unless you have questions.
Yeah, any questions for the applicant at this time, Commissioners?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. There are no participants of record today, so at this time it's back to the board to make a motion or discuss.
Well, they make a motion to move the item.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane and the seconds from Commissioner Greenwell. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing no discussion, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, let's move to the Barrett Park adoption hearing. It's a comprehensive plan amendment.
All right, good morning, everyone. I appreciate your time today. For the record, Joe Saracino from the planning section discussing CPA 2022-00016, a privately initiated small-scale amendment. Again, this is a small-scale amendment since it's a future land use category change under 50 acres, so it's up for adoption today, not transmittal. This will change roughly 20 acres from sub-outlying suburban to urban community and amend Table 1B to maintain internal consistency with the Lee Plan. The amendments will allow the applicant to redevelop an existing affordable housing neighborhood. The existing future land use map is on the screen to the left, and the proposed is on the screen to the right. The subject property is on the west side of Barrett Road between Pondella and Pine Island Road. Sewer, water, solid waste, fire, EMS, police, and school capacity are available to serve the property consistent with Objective 2.2. Oh, excuse me, sorry. The subject property is outside the coastal high hazard area and outside of other hazards that would impact residential development, consistent with Policy 5.1.2. Employment and shopping centers are in close proximity, consistent with Policy 5.1.3. The proposed development would allow for affordable housing in safe and attractive neighborhoods, consistent with Objective 30.1. The changes to Table 1B are proposed to accommodate the potential development, or the proposed development consistent with Policy 1.6.5. In conclusion, the character of the surrounding area supports the proposed future land use change. The proposal will allow for the development of a diverse housing option in the area. The amendment helps carry out the North Fort Myers Community Plan vision of providing affordable housing. Long-range traffic analysis demonstrates that adjacent roadway networks fail with and without proposed amendments, and staff and the LPA both recommend that the board adopt the proposed amendments as proposed in Attachment 1, and staff is available for any questions.
Okay, great. At this time, do we have any questions for our staff? Okay, I see no questions for the staff then. I just had one real quick, well, I assume the applicant can cover this too. Just could you describe the nature of the redevelopment? Is it going to be a rebuild of the community or in addition to the community?
So the applicant can answer definitely a little bit more, but based off of the concurrent rezoning, it will be an expansion of it. So currently it's 50 single-family homes on the parcel, and it will be expanded into roughly 200 units in a multifamily development.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, would the applicant like to make a presentation at this time? Morning.
So I think staff did a good job. Oh, sorry, for the record, Dan DeLisi. I am a planning consultant for the Lee County Housing Authority, who is the property owner. So just to, I'll forego the presentation. I think staff did a great job on their presentation. Just want to note a couple things. To answer your question, it is a redevelopment of an existing project. The existing project actually has greater density than the future land use map would allow. It's not the appropriate land use category, as it is today. The redevelopment makes much more efficient use of a property that's already developed. We're only redeveloping on the non-environmental areas of the site. So there's a wetland on the site, which we're staying out of. There's a creek system. We're keeping all the preservation areas preserved. We're only redeveloping on the existing developed areas, and again, making more efficient use of the property. And with that, I do want to mention we do have Marcus Goodson here, the Executive Director of the Lee County Housing Authority, if you have any specific questions for him. But otherwise, we'll respond to any comments if there are any.
Okay, good. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, see no questions. All right, this one is a comprehensive plan amendment hearing. Has anyone come to speak in public comment on this one today? Yeah, Ms. Ellis, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, Marcia Ellis here is a resident, Interloop Working Group, as well as Responsible Growth Management. And I just want to clarify for the record when we talk about affordable housing, what we're talking about is 80% of the income, of the median income. Right, so this is going on the record as 80% of that median income. This is the official definition of affordable housing. So this is for low and moderate income people. So I just want to clarify that that is the intent as stated for affordable housing. And also I would like to know what sort of mechanism is in place for the developer of this to ensure that it remain permanently affordable into the future. Thank you.
Okay. Has anyone else come to speak in public comment on this specific item today? Raise your hand if so. Okay, I see no more hands, so we'll close the public comment period at this time. Commissioners, I would like to give the applicant a chance to address the question. I actually happen to be familiar with the neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood that helps a lot of really good people, but would love to give the applicant an opportunity to address that. So I see Mr. Goodson. Would you be the one to answer that question? Yeah, please come forward then. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcus Goodson, for the record, Executive Director, Lee County Housing Authority. 80% of AMI, most of the residents that are going to be living there are going to be making far less than that. We've got a 50-year affordable agreement for that land. That land is going to remain affordable for at least 50 years, probably in perpetuity. It's going to be owned by the Housing Authority. That's what we do. I don't think I need to mention to this commission the need for affordable housing in this community, which was exacerbated by the hurricane. So we are excited about it. We're going to go from 50 units to 200. One phase will be for seniors, which is always a need in this community. So the 80%, that's not going to be an issue at all. We're going to be far less than that. Most of our residents are 30, 40, 50% AMI.
Great. Any further questions for the applicant at this time? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, commissioners, as the district commissioner for the area, I would definitely support a motion to approve, but.
Well, I would gladly make that motion for you, sir.
All right, motion for approval from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All right, I see no discussion. Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, at this time, we will move to the Greenwell 31 rezoning case, and Commissioner Greenwell, I'll recognize you to make an announcement.
Thank you, Chairman. I am abstaining from voting on DCI 2021-00050 due to a conflict of interest. My family and I own the subject property, and I will file the Form 8B with the minutes office.
Thank you, Commissioner. Give everybody a chance to set up. All right, and at this time, I'd like to recognize our staff to introduce the item, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Beth Workman. I'm with the zoning section as a principal planner. I was the lead planner on this case before you today. It is Greenwell SR 31 Mixed Plan Development. It's DCI 2021-00050. The request before you is to rezone 76.82 acres of land from agricultural, AG2, to mixed plan development. The applicant is requesting to allow for up to 400,000 square feet of commercial development and up to 122 residential dwelling units. The hearing examiner recommended approval subject to conditions and the deviation set forth in Exhibit B of the hearing examiner's recommendation. There were 15 participants of record, and staff and applicant are here for any questions. I just want to make one clarity that the hearing examiner did recommend some revisement to the master concept plan to speak to the rural design, and staff can elaborate on that if the commissioners would like that at this time.
Commissioners, maybe just, again, for a process question, so is there anything that needs to be added to the motion to include that memo and that condition, or?
Staff does not believe so because the applicant is providing the required buffer along State Road 31 for the design before you that meets the land development code. And at time of development order, the applicant will need to demonstrate compliance with the rural design characters set forth in the land development code in Chapter 33 for the North Olga community plan.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
The first time this case came up was a 25-foot setback, then it was conditions added 50-foot, but that's actually optional, it's not required by code, right? So it could be 25-foot, like the original.
It could be 25,
Right.
depending on the positioning of the buildings at time of DO, and that's built into the land development code in the
And
North.
that's done at the development order stage, not today.
Correct. And what you see before you.
The motion could just make it back to 25-foot pending the development.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do we have other questions from the commission at this time? No. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call the applicant to make their presentation.
Bear with me as I switch to.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. For the record, Ken Galander, certified planner, here on behalf of the applicant and owner. Ms. Workman, staff clearly presented the request, and we certainly concur with her presentation. I do have a presentation to go through to provide some further testimony into the record. With that, the applicant, we agree with the staff summary and recommendation that was presented, as well as the HEC's recommendation of approval with conditions, except we respectfully want to further clarify our understanding of the HEC's remarks, the hearing examiner's remarks related to the master concept plan and that condition 1. So if I may proceed, thank you. I'm going to move to, on this slide, the hearing examiner provided remarks regarding the master concept plan being inconsistent with the LZC and must be revised. And this was specifically related to parking, off-street parking, and setbacks. With regards to the off-street parking, there are standards within the Land Development Code that establishes certain criteria, and it also provides an alternative based on the opportunity for some flexibility into the site design as they move into the development order stage. And this allows for alternative for the parking being required at the rear of the building. If you choose to utilize the alternative, you must provide that 25-foot wide Type D buffer and plantings between the buildings and right-of-way, which we, as staff affirmed, we are providing that. I'll further identify that in a later slide. Also regarding setbacks, it is our position that there is required under the LDC a 50-foot minimum setback from the arterial and collector. And parking under the LDC is allowed within that setback as long as you're providing that enhanced 25-foot wide buffer. Under our development regulations, site development regulations, under the conditions, it originally did state 25 feet. Understanding the code, it is, in our opinion, a 50-foot setback from arterial and collector roadways. What brought us to those regulations under the North Olga Community Plan under Goal 29, it requires under Objective 29.3 that regulations are established that focus on initially landscaping, architecture, lighting, and signage. Further, under Policy 29.3.3, to maintain that rural and aesthetic value under new commercial development, the landscaping architectural styles for all buildings within proposed commercial developments will comply with the design standards within LDC Chapter 33 as part of the development review process. So the LDC has established those implementing regulations under Article 10, titled North Olga, in implementing 29.3 and 29.3.3. This is our current dated January 2023 master concept plan. I wanted to highlight this portion of our master concept plan and blow that up to reference that portion, identifying that we are providing the 25-foot Type D buffer along State Route 31. There is an existing 50-foot Florida gas transmission easement that's identified. The conceptual building footprint, where the little C is, and on the C on to the right, identifies that we are at that 50-foot, quote-unquote, setback point as referenced under the 50-foot easement. The MCP was reviewed as part of our submittal process. Staff concurs with our opinion on concurring with those design criteria. We did offer an additional condition to the HEX that development order plans and our commitment to supporting those design criteria under Article 10 and Division 2. But we respectfully request and agree that the MCP as presented today, the January 2023, is consistent with the Land Development Code. And regarding condition in 2B, the site development regulations providing for that setback consistent with the Land Development Code should be 50 feet. So again, we concur with the recommendation of approval with conditions and the single deviation that staff presented, as well as the hearing examiner's approval with conditions. So on behalf of the applicant and based on the recommendations of approval, our testimony provided today, we respectfully request the Board of County Commissioners approve the rezoning request with conditions and specifically adhering to the master concept plan dated January 2023 and the single deviation. So be happy to answer any further questions you may have.
Sure. Commissioners, at this time, do you have questions for the applicant at all?
I'm good.
No? Okay, thank you very much.
you.
Okay, at this time, since this is a zoning hearing, at zoning hearings, the public comment is limited to those who participated in the hearing below. So I have a list of 15 participants of record in front of me. They're listed in alphabetical order, so I'll go ahead and call them in alphabetical order. And I'll call the person who's coming up to speak, and then I'll let you know who's on deck and who should be getting ready to come up to speak. When you get up here, just so that you know what don't touch the microphone. It's apparently a really sensitive microphone, and it's positioned just right for the public comment and for the broadcast today as well. You'll also see at the very top of the podium, there's a green light, yellow light, and red light. Zoning hearings get 5 minutes for public comment. And so the green light, you know you're good to talk. When the yellow light starts coming on, that's when you might want to think about wrapping up your thoughts. And when the red light comes on, to make sure we're fair and give everybody the same amount of time, that's when I'm going to go ahead and call the next speaker. So that should be how it's going to go. I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's comments. The first speaker today is Norman Cannon, and he'll be followed by Amanda Cochran.
Good morning, Norman. Norman from Jamaica Bay, right?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Norman Cannon. I live in Lee County.
Jamaica Bay, yes.
I was at the Hex rehearing and heard Deputy County Attorney Michael Jacob testify that nothing had changed since the previous meetings. Subsequent public testimony, if it's to believe, Attorney Jacob was incorrect in his statement that there were changes. I heard Ms. Workman, who works for the county, make a presentation, and it sounded like she was selling the property for the applicant, not working as a public servant of the county. Excuse me. The latest finding is no different than numerous recent findings by the hearing examiner, which have then been corroborated by the Board of County Commissioners. No matter the reasoning, facts, or volume behind residents' opposition, these developments are allowed to go on. No matter how many contraventions to county plans and regulations are found, they are swatted away, much as one would swat a pesky fly away. Why did the hearing examiner approve this when the state plans for the expansion of Route 31 go right through the property? Are you going to require that the developer institute a marketing plan which informs prospective buyers of this? And setting this aside for a moment and listening to the gentleman that just presented it and listening to Commissioner Hammond on the radio this morning, I heard an awful lot about conforming to the way the place is now. How can buildings, 60 or 70-foot buildings in that area, be construed as being the same as what is out there in a rural area? Alva and Olga both want it maintained as rural, and this doesn't do it. I'm opposed to the hearing examiner's findings for obvious reasons. And in summary, I want to quote a line that I found in the Gulf Shore Business on June 16, 2023. It seems...
Real quick before you say that, would that be evidence that was presented at the hearing below, the Gulf Shore Business line, Mr. Jacob, County Attorney?
June 16th, I believe the hearing was over by then.
Okay, so there are some rules that you're not allowed to present evidence here at this hearing that wasn't presented at the hearing below. So that may not be admissible to introduce here.
It's not
Again,
evidence. It's not evidence, it's a statement.
Well, so
It's not direct evidence about the
I
hearing.
don't want him to lose his time, so you pause that for me real quick. So, Mr. County Attorney, could you weigh in on, this is a quasi-judicial process. We have to follow certain rules as to what we hear and accept as testimony here. Could you just kind of explain that? And I'm not trying to shut you down. I just want to make sure I follow the rules because of, what could happen and the consequences when you do zoning hearings wrong.
And I'll say the same thing in my own words.
Yeah.
Yes, Commissioner, the process we're in right now is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The county's regulations are designed under state law and case law to ensure that applicants receive the due process that they're required to have. Participants of record are required to have presented testimony and evidence to the hearing examiner so that the applicant has the ability to cross-examine and present rebuttal evidence necessary for their case. That's why our rules in place today require any testimony and evidence that's presented to you, the decision makers, must have been already presented to the hearing examiner and to the applicant during that time.
Okay. So long story short, right. So the evidence that's presented today from both the applicant and the participants needs to be substantially similar to the evidence that was presented at the hearing below so that it matches what's in the record.
Correct. If the individual is just going to have a statement that has no evidentiary value whatsoever, it really doesn't have any impact on the due process of the applicant. The referencing articles and documents, things that have occurred after the hearing are not appropriate, but if it's just some sort of anecdotal statement that he wants to make, then...
So, okay, so you're free to say it in your own words. Absolutely then. All right, let's go ahead and continue his time then, and thanks, Mr. Cannon, for...
Well, I'll turn it up, and I'll say it in my own words. It seems that the county is more interested in making things work than taking the people of the county into consideration. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. All right, so our next speaker is Amanda Cochran, followed by Darius Cochran.
Amanda Cochran, good morning. Commissioner Greenwell is asking for a massive commercial transformation to the last and most rural corridor of Southwest Florida, the largest commercial development ever requested by anyone in the history of Alva. His proposal contains unprecedented expansion in this rural area and has significant inconsistencies among the Lee Comprehensive Plan. For instance, during the original hearing examiner's meeting, the hearing examiner asked Commissioner Greenwell's representative several times in several different ways to please define how the applicant is recognizing and adhering to goals 27 and 29. She even referred to the master concept plan as, quote, highly urbanized design with a big box and a sea of parking, end quote. And she stated it looked like, quote, something you'd see at the intersection of Colonial and 6 Mile Cypress, end quote. Goal 27 of the Lee plan says, quote, maintain, enhance, and support the heritage and rural character, natural resources, and agricultural lands. Absolutely nowhere in this proposal is that goal honored. To this day, the entirety of Goal 27 still has not been met based on their application. Goal 29 states, quote, promote and support the unique rural character, heritage, economy, quality of life, and natural resources in North Olga Community Plan. I don't believe any of that wording sounds anything like Colonial and 6 Mile Cypress. And I don't believe any of that wording has anything to do with or could in any way be interpreted as compliant when 60-foot-high apartments are currently in the proposal. Again, to date, no response provided by Commissioner Greenwell's representatives have satisfied or come close to meeting those goals laid out in those policies. After spending so much time questioning the applicant's noncompliance with Goal 27 and 29, I am unsure how the hearing examiner arrived at her recommendation to approve when there is still no compliance. In the hearing examiner's findings and conclusions under Section D, she states, quote, the recommended conditions of approval and county regulations provide sufficient safeguards to protect the public interest. As an example, she uses policy 5.1.5 in the Lee Comp Plan, which states, quote, protecting existing and future residential areas from any encroachment of uses that are potentially destructive to the character and integrity of the residential environment. Again, I cannot fathom how 60-foot-high apartments on a proposal could ever satisfy that policy in the most rural section of Southwest Florida. She also uses policy 135.9.5, which states, quote, new development adjacent to areas of established residential neighborhoods must be compatible with or improve the area's existing character. If this proposal was actually improving the existing character, these concerned residents behind me would be here in support. Why do we have these policy codes if we aren't going to require applicants to abide by them? On Commissioner Greenwell's property, 66.5 of the 76.82 acres is considered high coastal hazard. Policy 101.3.2 of the Lee Plan states it restricts development in a coastal high hazard area to uplands as needed for provisions of public utilities. The hearing examiner points out that increasing density in a high coastal hazard is, quote, not something we typically do, end quote. She goes on to say, quote, she doesn't understand the rationale for the staff's finding this application consistent with policy, end quote. Again, why are we sidestepping policies for this applicant? 60-foot high apartments is a stretch for most areas of Lee County, but Alva? How in the world can anyone define that as common sense in the most rural section of Southwest Florida? We aren't Charlotte County. I have to ask myself, with all the seemingly end runs around policies to try to force them to fit, could any other individual get a rezoning request like this approved? I guess that's the real question.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Darius Cochran.
Morning.
Morning.
You don't have to vote yes, and you do not have to vote no. The county examiner gave you some recommendations, but the history of the Lee County Board of County Commissioners, you voted no on several of her recommendations. If the county examiner is going to control everything and the county staff is going to plan and control everything, why do we need your vote? You're supposed to be the stopgap of common sense in this county. You've been fighting hard for 60 foot in Captiva, Sanibel, on the bridge. I appreciate that, Ray and Kevin, because we have people from Sanibel here to support us. Apartments on a farm are not any part of agricultural. You can talk about these buffers. I heard the developer talk about we're going to buffer this, buffer that. You're going to have to go to California to the Sequoia National Forest to buffer a 65-foot apartment building. Buffers are ridiculous to talk about. I was told the Hertz Arena is less square footage than what you're about to approve for this commissioner, sitting commissioner. This is a precedent that will be from New York to Miami. Every single person will call and they will say, look, the county commissioner will let you develop on a high hazard flood zone. They'll let you develop in wetlands. They'll let you not worry about the hurricane evacuation route. They don't care about a bridge that's not going to be built for 7 years, according to FDOT, of evidence that I sent to you that you would not accept from the county. The attorneys here represent you. Let everybody know that all these folks here represent you. They don't represent the people. Not one person from Greenwell, SR 31, showed up to support this. So do you make us go to all these public meetings just as a formality, or do you actually listen to the people talking? Because we go to all these meetings, we take off work, these people get bullied on social media, interrogated, intimidated for speaking up. We live in the Alga-Alva area. None of you guys that I know of live out here. You're the stopgap. You had protect and serve on your car for many, many years, and I appreciate that. I want you to protect and serve these people in Alva-Alga area like you protected all the people at the city of Fort Myers. This apartment building would be high if it's on Cleveland Avenue. This is on a farm. 5-story apartments you think is going to be fitting into agricultural. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no. Don't set a precedent for the rest of Lee County history. You're supposed to be impartial to no one. I couldn't get this development in. Nobody in here could get this development through. Not one person in Lee County could get this development through. And I'm sorry, I'm passionate, but God, country, and family, and my community is my family. And I have been asked to come here because this is insanity. Zero common sense. On your document, general rules of board, courtesy to all, justice to all, the rights of the minority, the rule of the majority. Not one person is going to support this today. Not one person supported this at the county examiner's office. Does the staff in the county run the county commission and the zoning plans here? Or are you guys the stopgap for common sense? Don't make a mistake here, guys. Up or down vote. We don't want this with stipulations. This, change this. No, up or down vote. On the merits of this project, it is absolutely insanity. I miss Frank Mann. Lives 3 doors down from me. And I miss Frank Mann. He wasn't right about everything, but he's right about common sense. Do not make a mistake. Please do not make a mistake. 4 people are going to determine for 10,000 people in the Alva-Olga area. You don't have to vote yes, and you don't have to vote no. There is no law, regulation, or rule in this set of rules that you have to vote yes or you have to vote no. Thank you for your time.
Order, please. Order. So I'd like to just real quickly point out one thing that is in our administrative code that just while you're up here, folks, we do ask you to address the board as a body instead of addressing any individual commissioners. It's in the county's administrative code 1.3. No, just as far as addressing any individual commissioners, just reiterating the rules so that we all follow by the rules of decorum today. Ma'am, there's also no interruptions too. That's in the rules of decorum too, and you're interrupting. So let's call our next speaker. It's Connie Davis, and after Connie Davis will be Matt DePaulis.
Connie Dennis.
It's listed on the sheet as Connie Davis. I apologize that it was incorrectly typed.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Connie Dennis, President of Alva, Inc., a community organization devoted to the preservation of Alva. As President, I heard nothing about this development until it was advertised as a second hearing, which I then attended to learn from the county presentation. This development application affects all of Alva, especially the north side of the river. The Lee Plan provides a blueprint for development in Lee County. One important aspect of this plan, throughout its many revisions, is to provide input from the community by requiring developers to hold public information meetings. In the Northeast Community Plan, one meeting is to be held in North Olga and one in Alva. For the past 25 years, the Alva community has held our meetings on the second Tuesday of each month, starting at 7:00 p.m. Prospective developers have called the county to find out who to contact and to arrange to come to our meetings, to arrange a presentation. We want to inform the community, we send out notices of future topics and presenters, and we now Zoom our meetings so that everybody can participate in our meetings. We are very disappointed that the present development plan was announced in the paper and then conducted 1 week before our regular meeting, our community meeting, without contacting us or trying to come to our regular meeting. 2 residents who actually live in Alva attended that meeting, and the rest live elsewhere. And I submitted this to the hearing examiner, the sign-up sheet. So the feedback from our community came from 2 people. My fear is that this could serve as a precedent for any developer to conduct their own meeting at their own time and possibly place by putting a little announcement in the paper and submit it as following the rule. I do not believe this follows the intent of the Lee Plan. We work hard to involve all interested residents, and I hope you take this information into consideration when you make your decision. We want our voice to be heard from more than 2 people. Thank you.
At this time, I'll call Matt DePaulis, followed by Denise Eberly. Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Good to see you again. Matt DePaulis. I'm the Environmental Policy Director for the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. You've heard a lot today about reasons why people have issue with this particular project. But I think we also have to take a step back and examine how this project is being forced through and the novel readings of the Lee Plan that are being discovered so that this project can continue. We saw in the transcript of that first hearing examiner, the first hearing examination, when she was asking the right questions. She was wondering why this project was being able to be put forth in the coastal high hazard zone for these private residences that do not adhere to the Lee Plan policies or objectives that state we should not have private development within the coastal high hazard zone. Objective 101.3 of the Lee Plan states that we need to protect life, property within Lee County, and policy 101.3.2 states that we should not have development outside of public utility within the coastal high hazard. The hearing examiner was right to question how this going forward could move forward with the Lee Plan in place. And then in between her questioning that and the final recommendation to come out, suddenly there's been a reading of the Lee Plan that states that if you get an environmental project permit on ERP, you are able to disregard the coastal high hazard zone and put enough fill in a wetland to then treat it as an upland and be able to develop. This is not a reading of the Lee Plan that has ever been used for any other development in the county. This is not a consideration that's taken in when an ERP is being granted by the DEP or the South Florida Water Management District. These ERP permits are simply to mitigate damage to surface water. And achieving one of these permits does not say anything about the health and safety of future residents who will be living in that coastal high hazard. It does not say anything about the protecting of the property or current residents that live in other areas that are depending on those wetlands. And to think that you can buy enough mitigation credits off the site or near the site to be able to garner an ERP permit and then dump enough fill in a wetland to bring it up to grade and put private residences on there is disconcerting and could be potentially dangerous moving forward. And in a community that has just suffered through Hurricane Ian, to talk about putting more density in a coastal high hazard area on the basis of an environmental resource permit that's granted by an agency who's simply looking at water quality is dangerous going forward. And it's not going to be the community who's looking to the Florida DEP or the South Florida Water Management District when a brand new community gets completely flooded and neighboring communities are now flooded because we don't have those natural buffers in place from the wetlands. It's going to be the community who's looking to this body right here. So that needs to be taken in consideration. And if this precedent is set that an ERP can be granted and that gives carte blanche to destroy wetlands, that's going to come before you for every developer in Lee County who wants to develop on a wetlands with complete disregard to any of the safety or the health or the personal property protection requirements that are currently enshrined within the Lee Plan. So I think this needs to be taken up a notch, and we need to understand exactly what precedent would be set here today with this novel reading of the Lee Plan and its understanding around permitting development within the coastal high hazard, and it has ramifications beyond this specific project here today. So thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
For the record, Matt, are you representing the SCCF today in this case?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Denise Eberly, and after Denise Eberly will be Marcia Ellis.
Good morning. I'm Denise Eberly. First, I'd just like to make a statement. First, I'd like to bring attention to a letter you all received from Chauncey Goss, which is relevant to why we are here today. Yeah. No one asked for this.
Ms. Eberly, I apologize. Could pause her time so she doesn't lose any. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Jacob, is that letter in the record?
Are we talking about the letter was sent on with regards to Captiva?
Yes.
That was sent after the hearing?
Excuse me?
It was sent after the hearing?
Yes.
You may not bring...
It's just a statement.
You may not bring
putting
it
it as evidence. Okay, it was just a quick sentence. I'm not elaborating on it.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Eberly.
Okay, no one asked for this. We were uninformed and misinformed. No one was aware of the design and magnitude of this development. To make point, a rehearing was needed because it was not advertised. We were denied input before the amendment was proposed and then approved. The HEX hearing, November 17th, was post-Hurricane Ian, while we were all recovering from devastation. We were blindsided, and I feel taken advantage of. I request a repeal of that amendment and a complete do-over. If the transcripts of November 17th HEX hearing, there were multiple comments from Ms. Collins, the hearing examiner, related to the incompatibility of this development in the rural communities. Just beginning on page 15, it went pretty much through the whole transcript of that hearing. I'm just going to point out a couple of them. So there were multiple comments from Ms. Collins for the incompatibility of this development in the rural communities. And I quote, "Explain to me how this site plan recognizes the heritage and rural character of those areas, of the area, because to me it looks like a highly urbanized design, big box and a sea of parking. To me, I look at this and that looks like something I'd see at the intersection of Colonial and 6 Mile Cypress. I basically see buildings and parking." There are many more comments like this throughout the transcript. Then in February, when an amendment is introduced and passed, rushed, in my opinion, subsequent to these HEX hearings, which none of us were at and didn't have any input, all these comments no longer have relevancy. They simply disappeared. I don't believe in coincidence. One more comment from Ms. Collins related to coastal high hazard area. You've heard this. I'm just curious, you're going from a rural to an outlying suburban, so you're increasing density in a coastal high hazard area. I'm wondering if the state has commented on that. That's typically not something that is supported. As of June 9th, there has been no comment or approval from the state, no ERP. We are not Charlotte County, we are not Babcock, but it seems that is the direction we are being forced into by Lee County staff, administration, and developers. Someone said that Ms. Morkwin seems to be working for the developer. I have that same opinion. This goes against the community goals of 27, 28, and 29. The development turns our rural community comparable to, using Ms. Collins' statement, Colonial and 6 Mile Cypress. I'm strongly in opposition to this development as it stands. It is equivalent to 2 Hertz arenas at 171,000 feet each, and the main Civic Center building, which is 65,000 square feet. It's insanity. That's all I can say. This is not a rural village design. This is not a rural village design. It's a city. We're an area of preserves. We want to remain rural. So that's all I have to say to that. So thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Marcia Ellis, followed by Henry Fichter.
Good morning. I do have some substantive new evidence that I'm submitting.
Okay, definitely don't bring that up to us.
Where's our applicant? Here we are. Are you applicant? Correct. Okay, wonderful.
And please, actually please don't approach until our attorneys weighed in. Thank you.
So I'm submitting this evidence because I was unable to access the documents that had the state comments, and I had been given erroneous information about the existing, that there actually was an ERP on this property that was granted in 2004. So I was unable to inform my presentation based on that information. It's well documented in email exchanges I had prior to the HEX hearing, where I was seeking access to those links. And it's documented in this letter to the DOE plan reviewer, who was on the October 13th letter. When I called him, he told me he had not seen this.
I hear your request.
Okay,
Let's
thank you.
see what our attorney says real quick.
Yes, ma'am. Can I get your... Okay, wonderful.
The information that, there's an exception in the code that provides that information that is not available at the time of the hearing may be presented to the board. It doesn't mean information that you just didn't get. To the extent this information was available, but you didn't get it, it does not meet the exception and cannot be presented.
Real quick.
You can't present it.
Yeah, just, so you can give it to the clerk, and I'm sure that if it can be incorporated, then we will do it, but please don't bring it forward at this time, okay?
I did submit, this is the exact PowerPoint, including the mistake, which I left and corrected, for each of the 4 of you, as well as for county. Who am I giving this to distribute? This is the exact PowerPoint.
I don't want it.
Okay. Would you guys like a?
So at this time, ma'am, if you would just hang on to all those handouts, and please go through your testimony at this time. We'd like to accept your testimony.
Yes.
Okay.
Give me just 1 second.
Don't start her timer, I guess, yet. We'll wait till she's ready.
Yes, this is Marcia Ellis. I'm a resident of Lee County and also representing the Interloop Working Group in Responsible Growth Management. I apologize for the mistake on the PowerPoint, but I'm going to just briefly take a look at the concerns regarding the conflict of interest. And now I'm going to focus in on the hearing examiner Collins and how she stated that she was curious as to how the state was going to react to this comp plan amendment because it was in a coastal high hazard area. And I'm going to refer now to the Florida statute. This is statute 163, and it was stated in the review by state agency that this had been considered, and I'm going to read the statute. The legislature recognizes there is significant interest in the resources of the coastal zone of the state. Further, the legislature recognizes that in the event of a natural disaster, the state may provide financial assistance to local governments for the reconstruction of roads, sewer systems, and other public facilities. Therefore, it is the intent of the legislature that local government comprehensive plans restrict development activities where such activities would damage or destroy coastal resources, and that such plans protect human life and limit public expenditures in areas that are subject to destruction by natural disaster. So this is a clear directive that our comprehensive plans and the application of land planning should reflect the fact that millions, billions of dollars were destroyed in Hurricane Ian. Billions of dollars are flowing into this community. And as a matter of resiliency and adhering to this statute, we have obligation to not waste the entire country's money by building in unsuitable locations. And so as I go forth, I'm going to also call out Policy 5.12, which prohibits residential development where natural physical constraints or hazards exist, including hurricane and flood hazards, soil or geologic conditions, environmental limitations, or aircraft noise. When this comprehensive plan was submitted, it was submitted with the wrong information about the quantity of jurisdictional wetlands that were on this property. And that is an inaccuracy that prohibits the state agencies who are reviewing to make an accurate determination about what sort of impacts that this development would have. So I ask that that be examined. Further, the recommendations of FWC to survey the entire 256 acres rather than just simply Mr. Greenwell's property needs to be conducted. As I work through here, we know that we had the transcript that we can refer to, which I will provide to each of you in my PowerPoint, and we can see the alarm that was raised about the consistency with the local Alva and Olga community. And also the concerns I'm raising about federal consistency with how we manage our coastal resources, our coastal management. Again, I did not have privy of the ERP permit that was approved in 2004 for G Ranch, though I had reached out to the reviewer at South Florida Management District asking if there might be an ERP permit that was under a different name. She was unable to identify that and provide that to me. And I specifically emailed her because I was unable to use the links associated with this case and access said information. So I really put good faith effort into getting the information that was denied me. Further, let me take a look. This is what we're looking at. And policy 6.17 prohibits commercial developments from locating in such a way as to open new areas to premature, scattered, or strip development, but permits commercial development on an infill or small parcels in areas where existing commercial development would make a residential use clearly unreasonable. There is no existing commercial development there. This is a misapplication of this policy. Mike Greenwell lives there. When we take a look at riskfactor.com, we can see how much of a coastal high hazard area and the increasing risk when we start factoring in sea level rise and rain bombs into modeling. So you cannot underestimate the impact that this will have on the people who are going to potentially live there and the surrounding, the surrounding users. Further,
Ms. Ellis, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to call the next speaker, Henry Fichter. Henry Fichter, are you here?
pardon?
After Henry will be Amy Harrington. Amy Harrington will be next.
Yes, please, thank you. I just wanted to provide them as a courtesy, and I have provided them previously. So I provided it well ahead of time so that you guys could vet it.
Next speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have not accepted it. Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Yeah. Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners, county staff. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and address you all on this matter. My name is Henry Grant Fichter. I'm a professional surveyor and mapper. I am here on behalf of the citizens of Alva, North Olga, and Lee County. I'm someone who cares deeply about the citizens of this county, including the applicant and their representatives. I want everyone to have a fair shake in this process. I realize that the opportunity to really get in front of this would have been when the comprehensive plan amendment was being proposed in late 22, early 23. Many of the community who have been in opposition of that amendment, or who would have been in opposition to that amendment, were still reeling from the after effects of the hurricane and doing very important work to rebuild bridges and infrastructure in our community. Today, with the comprehensive plan amendment already accepted, I would just like to reiterate what was mentioned at the examiner's hearing, and the concern is that this property ties in and lies within a coastal high hazard flood area, and since the initial proposal was submitted, the dynamics of the site have changed. The updated FEMA flood map in November of 22 changes the base flood elevation from 7-foot North American vertical datum to 11-foot, which is a significant increase. This is an area that is prone to flooding, and I would like to request that you send this back to the owner and developer to address the change and resubmit. Lee Plan Policy 101.3.2, which confines development to coastal high hazard flood areas, states to limit development except for public facilities. So all we can hope, at this point, is that you look at this situation and imagine it happening in your district and how you would view it and justify it. That's really all we're looking for. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. Amy Harrington, followed by James Kennedy. Folks, really, the rules of decorum say we're not supposed to applaud after everyone, and I've tried to be real, lenient today, but could we just please not do any booing, cheering, hissing, applauding? And just treat people the way we'd like to be treated. Let's call up Amy Harrington, and then James Kennedy will be next. Amy, are you here? Okay, I don't see Amy. James Kennedy, are you here? Okay, James Kennedy's not here. Joe Kennedy then? Joe, are you here? Oh, good. Okay, come on forward. After Joe Kennedy will be Rosa Marie L. McCoy. No worries, we're fine. No worries.
Good morning,
Good morning
to each of you. I'm Joe Kennedy. I am not I have no credentials other than the fact that I'm a citizen of Alva, and I am concerned about the different things that have been mentioned this morning. I'm concerned about the fact of our water situation. I've lived here a long time, and I know that we are facing many different problems. We're facing problems with the river that runs through our community. We're facing problems with the streams and the different things that pour into our community. But I'm also concerned about the fact that our roads are not sufficient to take care of the traffic that is being on our streets and our roads today. I've seen the difference, and I know that I'm not qualified to speak on these things, but I'm speaking from my heart. And I'm concerned. It's not that I'm against progress. I know that it's coming, and I know that we will have buildings there. But I also know that there is a proper time for them. And at this time, it is not the proper time for more people on our roads, our bridges. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. At this time, we'll call Rosa Mary L. McCoy. And then Joseph McGuire will be next. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for getting my name correctly. First of all, I show this to you only because I believe in America. I believe in inequality for everyone. We are not against growth in Alva. What we are against is the multiple that comes in that disregards everything we live for and everything we stand for. And I would also like to mention to you that in our audience today is Lachey Russ. She is from Charleston Park. The people of Charleston Park said, we will do your job if you will go to the county commission and represent us. Alva includes Charleston Park, and we will all be impacted. I don't think you gentlemen realize how the impact of these buildings, the wetlands, I've watched wetlands be filled in, and just down the street from me, one of the men filled in a whole wetland, and I went down and said, you can't do that. He said, yes, I can, I did. And he said, don't worry, you'll like what I've done. No, I didn't like what he did, and no, it has not come back. 100 years from now, it won't be back. We're asking you to represent us like you should and vote no to Mike Greenwell's property, his plan, and let us stay rural. We'll take rural, and I thank you so much for your time. Thank you, sir.
All right, our next speaker is Joseph McGuire, followed by David Mendez. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Joe McGuire. I live in Alva. During the hearing examiner's public comment section, I expressed concerns about 3 different areas of this plan. One being the coastal high hazard, specifically the floodplain. Number 2, the traffic impact. And the third being that this property and its plan is inconsistent with the rural character out there. As a result of the hearing examiner's comments, we're here before you again today. Let me express a couple of things. Building in a coastal high hazard is against the Lee County Comprehensive Plan. In the aftermath of Hurricane Irma from 2017 and the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, putting lives into a coastal high hazard area whose base flood elevation has gone from 7 to 11 and whose changes are significant is a very bad idea. To do so puts people in harm's way. In other actions before you recently, you've said no to that for those reasons. Traffic. State Road 31, by the applicant's own admission, at the time that this is built out, will be a grade F. Today they list it as part of their traffic impact study as a grade C. The area of greatest concern is from Old Rodeo Road to North River Road. That is the area directly adjacent to the property. During the hearing examiner's public comment section, I pulled pieces from the state DOT survey from 2018 that's part of the ongoing work to decide how to fix State Road 31. I also drew a parallel to the two-lane stretch there to what you're currently experiencing with Corkscrew Road. Commissioners before you approved rooftop after rooftop on Corkscrew Road, knowing that the two-lane stretch coming from Ben Hill Griffin out past Wildcat Run was at failure, knowing that something had to be done. It took well over a decade for that to happen. If you approve this, the same fate befalls the residents that travel and rely on State Road 31 by the applicant's own admission. In the most likely scenario of a four-laning from Old Rodeo Road to North River Road, at the time that this development comes online, you will be at a status E or a failing status. Considering that beyond this, with the already approved Owl Creek, you will certainly be in a failing status. So no matter what the state does, whether it's a 4-lane or a 6-lane, you are likely to release this development by your actions today into a failed infrastructure. And for that reason, and the coastal high hazard development, along with what I'm about to tell you with rural character, I need you to deny this. In the hearing examiner's comments, she talked about the 50-foot versus the 25-foot setback, which is a reference to Chapter 33, Article 10. There's a really neat piece in there that far surpasses any of the words within Article 33, Chapter 10. There are pictures of architecture. There are 4 pictures contained in that code, none of which are 6-story buildings. They are single-story buildings as examples of the type of architecture that is appropriate within the North Olga Plan. To build a 60-foot, or to approve a plan that includes a 60-foot building and potentially a 71 to 75-foot height in rural Alva, Northeast Lee County is wrong, and if you want to see the pictures, they're in the code. I appreciate your attention to the matter, and I hope that you will deny it.
Thank you. David Mendez, followed by Gary Stillwell. Morning.
Morning. It's my first time at the
Welcome.
board. Looks good. My name is David Mendes. I lived and worked in Lee County since 1983. My entire career, I have been a commercial beekeeper In 1986, we purchased 10 acres on Highway 31 just above Cook and Brown Road. It was a very rural area then, and that is what appealed to us. We understood that not everyone wanted to live next to a bee operation. Over the years, our business grew, and eventually we were managing up to 20,000 hives from our home base on 31. I have seen many changes to this area over the last 35+ years, but none so substantial as in the recent 5 to 10 year span. I have kept bees all over the Babcock Ranch before it was a development, all along Highway 31, River Road, Alva, and even had bees on Mr. Greenwell's property for a while. I am here today to oppose this project. My understanding of land use planning is to put the right project or building in the right place at the right time. Growth has come to this area like a hurricane or tornado. On 31, we've always had to be concerned about getting run down by a dump truck or semi, but now we're just as likely to get hit by an SUV or contractor's truck. I'm not holding the Lee County Commissioner responsible for the Babcock Ranch development. That was a gift from Charlotte County. But our roads are severely overcrowded because of this. I am concerned about the excessive development being considered for the 31 corridor. This project will add to congestion. I know we keep hearing that there are plans to widen Highway 31 and Bayshore Road, but when will that happen? Why not wait for the infrastructure to be completed before more development is approved? Highway 31 widening has been clearly identified. It's going to happen. Several different scenarios have been suggested. Most plans are on the east side of the road. How much of this property will be absorbed? There is also a large gas line along the east side. How will that affect the project? Bayshore Road is another problem. We have heard several plans about the widening project, but when? The 31 Wilson Piggott Bridge is over 60 years old. There are plans to rebuild that structure, but when? How much additional traffic will this project generate? Mr. Greenwell has a beautiful piece of property, as it is. It fits the area. The proposed development does not. My daddy used to say you can't put 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag, and if you do, it probably won't hold. That's my concern with this excessive development along 31. Please note the improvements to the roads, please make the improvements to the roads, water, sewer, and other infrastructure before approving more projects. Once again, land use planning is about putting the right project in the right place at the right time. Alva is a very special place. The changes proposed will take that away forever, forever, forever. I feel that you're putting 10 pounds into the space for 5. Please be reasonable with your decisions. Thank you very much.
All right, Gary Stillwell.
Good morning, Gary Stillwell, Lee County resident. I have to agree with everything that practically everyone has said here. There are some things I think deserve a little bit another mention. The coastal high hazard area in this thing, the FEMA flood map was changed. That was a late piece of information that was presented in the last HEX hearing that puts this whole development in the coastal high hazard area. There are some discussions about Water Management District determining jurisdictional wetlands in there, but there are other wetlands in there that will not be determined as jurisdictional. Those wetlands would come under the same 151 policy or 101.3.2, which restricts construction in the areas, with the exception of public facilities. Other folks have spoken about that. But these other wetlands will come under that as well, the ones that are not, that you don't have control over, that you gave to the district. So it would appear that the county is not contemplating such restrictions in this development based on the go-ahead with this and saying that it meets that thing. I would say that this is in violation of that policy. The rezone of this parcel is inconsistent with the community plans of both Alva, Northeast Lee County, and people have mentioned those goals, and I agree with those statements and comments. Not only that 60 or 70 foot high building, but the proposal for 8-foot high walls is not something that you would see in Alva either. Matter of fact, you couldn't even put them up over there if I tried to do that. I do have some real concerns about the timing of this and the rapidity that it seems to be moving forward with. You spoke about some information that could be considered new, although it's not new or available. The State Road 31 widening, the DOT has already made the approved alignment that's going to take out about 400 feet of this property on State Road 31. We already know that. That was determined about 2 years ago. So the setbacks and all that kind of stuff for the front parking is going to be gone when that road comes through. I'm not sure I understand why the development of this is going ahead like this when you know it's going to change. It's going to take out the whole front of that thing. The parking will be gone. And it's going to go on the east side of the Florida gas transmission pipe, which is, I heard this morning that they're planning on putting a 25-foot buffer right over the top of that pipe. I'm telling you, Florida gas transmission will not allow that, and neither will Florida Power and Light. They have to be able to maintain those pipes and inspect them. So that thing is out. We just had a hole in a TECO pipe, gas pipe out there here a week or so ago. Can you imagine what would happen if construction equipment or somebody doing a directional bore or something hit that 30-inch Florida gas transmission pipe? That thing is under about 1,000 pounds of pressure. That thing gets punctured, it's going to go up like a bomb. And when that happens, Florida Power and Light plant will be gone. 3,000 megawatts, this whole side of the state's going to go into the dark. It's a risk, unlikely, but in any event, I think that's just the race to move this thing along is, I think it's the cart before the horse. Those roads need to be aligned, plans made for when that road comes through so that this thing is designed properly, which currently it's not. It's going to get cut off. I hope you deny this thing. Thank you very much.
All right, that concludes the list of participants of record. At this time, I'll recognize the applicant to address the concerns that have been raised.
Mr. Chairman, board members, it's pretty straightforward. We still concur with our testimony provided and the staff report and the HEC's recommendation. So we don't have anything further to rebut or add.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this time? No questions for the applicant at this time? I just wanted to ask real quickly, so there's a reference to the 60-foot high building heights. Is that what you're proposing here, or is that just the maximum that's allowed in the plan?
Under the process, there is the availability to establish your height maximums under the plan development process. And then utilizing the language within the code and the comprehensive plan or LEAP plan, that through our orientation of the multifamily buildings, if they were to be built, have to be within the interior of the project. Single family is proposed all along conceptually the perimeters. So our development regulations do propose that maximum of 65 feet.
Any further questions then? All right. Thank you very much.
Hopefully I answered.
From the testimony we heard today and yesterday, based upon sea level rise and the flooding issues, it sounds like they're actually speaking they want the buildings to go even higher because get out of the water's harm's way. So that's the way I take it. Sounds like they want the buildings to be taller. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the board at this time then. We're at the part where the board considers the item.
If I could call on the county attorney for a second.
Commissioner Pendergrass, you're recognized. Yep.
Michael, thank you. Maybe you can help us a little bit. Maybe some of the residents here today, we have some regulars here, then we have someone that's been here before. Can you give us a little bit of background? I know there's comments made saying we don't have to vote today. We can say don't vote at all. Well, we all know we're required to cast a vote if you're present in a meeting, so we cannot just not vote. And also to give the audience a little background, the way the HEX process works, that we can only deny something if it's competent substantial evidence based upon, like traffic, for example. We cannot deny, based upon state law changes in 2011, we cannot deny any project based upon traffic. A little bit of background on that, and just about the whole process that goes, and what happens to the county if we deny the project that's been approved by the HEX, what liability goes back to all the taxpayers in Lee County. And since we do have people here from Jamaica Bay and Sanibel and Captiva and everybody else is paying for that, what that would cost the Lee County taxpayers.
Yes, sir. As mentioned earlier, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. There are certain requirements that the board must meet in order to make its decision, and you are correct. Under state law, if you are present, you must vote unless you have a conflict of interest. There is no ability to do that, as suggested by one of the members. The process, as a quasi-judicial process, there's under state law, your decision must be based on competent substantial evidence in the record. That's part of the due process issue we talked about earlier. That evidence must be before you to support a basis of denial. In the past, many years ago, the county and the state had a concurrency requirement that transportation concurrency must be met in order to approve a development. In 2011, the state changed that law and no longer allows for county to deny an application simply because of concurrency. And under
State that again, because I think that's worth hearing.
Just because
the
of-
state made a law that we have to live by that says we can't deny based on what?
traffic. You cannot deny.
State made a law and we have to live by it, signed by the governor, that we can't deny based on traffic. Okay, thank you.
That's correct. You cannot base your decision on the fact that there's traffic and failing roads is no longer an option for you as this board.
I'm sorry, please don't interrupt. This is our time to deliberate with the attorney.
And with regards to the process, the applicant is required to go through a public hearing, have public meetings out on the, in the area. One resident did bring up, I think it was Ms. Dennis, who brought up the ability for applicants to hold public meetings wherever they want, however they want. I wanted to reiterate, to get some clarification for members of the public that might have never seen this, but the regulations that apply for this development, and excuse me for reading this, clearly provide that the applicant is responsible for providing the meeting space, providing notice of the meeting, and providing security measures as needed. The meeting location will be determined by the applicant and must be held within the boundaries of the North Olga community or within the boundaries of an immediately adjacent community planning area, Alva, Bay Shore, Caloosahatchee Shores. Meetings may, but are not required to be, conducted before non-county formed boards, committees, associations, or planning panels. That is not a requirement of your code. It has never been that way. From the standpoint of these proceedings, these have been noticed, properly noticed. We did have the issue with the previous HEX hearing. The comprehensive plan amendment process was followed. There was proper notice for that, and there is proper notice for this hearing today. With that, I think I addressed all your...
I heard another comment being this was expedited and rushed through. Does anybody can tell me, either staff or your office can tell me what year this started? Because I believe it's been a few years going now, right?
The case
First application?
The case is a 2021 case, so at least the application was filed in 2021.
Great, thank you. Okay, I just want to say also, as far as the comments about the traffic, we heard the attorney's version that we cannot make changes or deny something because of traffic, but we are, as the chairman of the MPO here, and all of us said as the MPO, and we work with the state closely, that State Road 31 project, before this even was talked about, has been moving really, really fast. You are seeing improvements out there. You're going to see a lot of change out there on the roads. Forget about this, has nothing to do with this project. You're going to see flyovers at 80, State Road 80 and 31, and that road's coming faster than ever. And I'm not sure where the timing has come from the state comments about the bridge, but I have a different timeline I've seen from my office as far as the bridge coming. So that bridge needs to be replaced sooner than later, so that has nothing to do with this project, but as far as I know, that 31's still coming pretty fast as far as the road goes. Thank you.
2 follow-up questions, if I may. So, Michael, you had indicated that this application was submitted in 21. Do you know when in 21?
I do not. The
approximate?
Actually, it's case number 50 in 21, so probably middle of the year, but one of the staff can answer that.
Would the hearing examiner know? Or
Commissioner, the case was submitted and assigned for review on December 10th, 2021.
okay. And the governor appointed Commissioner Greenwell July 22nd, 2022?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's relevant. Second question, sorry. Is there anything that was stated that the hearing examiner needs to clarify or anything that was inaccurate that you'd like to rephrase? I don't know if that's appropriate.
No, I understand that the staff is saying that it's not necessary to amend the master concept plan. If staff and the applicant agree with that, then I will defer to their agreement on that issue and it can be handled at the development order stage. And then with regard to the setback, I understand what they're saying there, and the staff and applicant are in agreement on the 25 feet. I will again defer to their collaboration on their interpretation of the code on that matter.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all my questions.
Based upon there was no competent substantial evidence to deny this project, I move the item, and without the hexes, additional 25 feet setback with the original setback of 25 feet.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have more discussion on the motion that's been presented? Commissioner Sandelli?
I'm just uncomfortable with the holistic piece of this. One, obviously, there's been some conflict, with the examiner and some other things. I think those have been answered. Number 2, the coastal high hazard area, I think there's been some evidence of concerns out there. And I think hopefully we've learned something from this situation. 31 was addressed. I've been through there a number of times, and I think there is progress, and I think, it's not there yet. And so when I look at the impact of the area overall, I'm struggling with that. So.
I just had a question. So I know, zoning is where we talk about compatibility. Maybe the question's for our county attorney. Zoning is where we talk about compatibility. Do we have the ability, for compatibility reasons, to try and knock the height limit from 60 down to a lower number? Or is that something that we don't do at this phase?
With regards to the ability to address conditions or provide additional conditions to deal with compatibility issues, the board has the ability to make those conditions.
Okay. I am having a hard time with the height of the buildings, commissioners, and I don't know if the motion maker, and the seconder have any other thoughts on that too. But I don't have a good feeling about the 60 feet high. I would think that it is looking at what we've called it on the future land use map, you do have to have a zoning that matches what the future land use map calls it. And so the future land use map does actually now put it into a more suburban type, urban type of use. So, you're going to have some multifamily there, but the 60-foot high does not sit well with me. I don't know if there's a compromise at the 30 feet high, the 3-story level, 35 foot, 3-story level, but I would need help from our staff to build out the evidence to develop that condition.
Great question, Mr. Chair, if I may. Great question, and I certainly share your concern.
I think the last comment I have is that Lee County as a whole is changing. And in this area here, there's going to be needs within that community for this kind of product at some point in time. I didn't see any people coming in to support it for now, and so I wrestle with that from a timing perspective, as I think was mentioned earlier.
Thanks, Commissioner. I see, Ms. Workman, you're at the podium. Maybe you can help answer my question about the height.
Yes, so the master concept plan was set up to have the single family at a shorter height that flanks the perimeter of the property, and then localize the multifamily in the center at the higher height with the preservation. So we have in our code, if you go up higher, you preserve more, you have bigger setbacks. So it was kind of like centrally located with that multifamily. And as you work towards the west, towards 31, you have that higher intensity commercial. Those are at a slightly lower height. So it kind of is sort of a wedding cake kind of thing going on as you work towards the intensity of 31. And that was the understanding. The prior MCP during review had multifamily out towards the perimeter at 60 feet. And we requested that through the review process that was not compatible with the Lee plan because you needed lesser intensity along the perimeter when you had larger agricultural lots with single family on them. And so that's why the revision, and that was done through an outstanding issue on the first staff report. And the applicant provided a 48-hour letter where they changed the master concept plan to move single family around the perimeter as a sort of transition to the higher multifamily and then the commercial against 31.
When the conditions are created at the hearing examiner level, are those built by the hearing examiner or are those built by the staff, or is it a collaboration?
They start off with staff's recommendation, and then the hearing examiners make modifications to what staff recommends.
Is there a condition that you could suggest that would help us get this to more like a 3-story building?
If you are not comfortable with a 60-foot height maximum on multi-family buildings due to compatibility with the North Olga community, you can limit it to, I believe 35 feet is 2-story. I'm not sure what the exact number is for 3-story. I think DCD staff can assist you with that number.
Okay.
35 is usually a single family height, the 2-story, and then 45 would be the next increment down from the 60. And in our property development regulations in the document, the HEX recommendation, 60 feet is stated in the property development regulations. That would just need to change to whatever you decide. The height would be a lesser of the 60 feet. If that would be 45 or it would be at a single family height of 35 feet.
So that would be a modification to condition 2 that set out the parameters for the property development regulations. And then you would, in that condition, request that the county attorney will prepare some final resolution, change that number from 60 down to 45.
Okay. I can support it if somebody wants to make that modification.
Just so it's clear, I'm going to pull my second at the moment, so I just want to make sure for the record I've pulled my second. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with this, and I don't know if we're creating something quickly. I don't know whether to go along with the 45 or whether we continue this. That's kind of where my head is.
Good question. Yeah, Commissioner Pendergrass.
As the motion maker, I understand the concerns, but again, I don't want to do things on the fly here when this could have been done through the other process, because we're trying to set a height. We really don't know where it's going to be shot from, and also the design of the building, like staff said, my home is 45 feet, being 2-story, so I'm not really sure. I understand 60 feet sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, what's the design and what's it going to look like as a concept plan as the whole community, as they said they were.
Folks, please don't interrupt.
As they're building from the middle out based upon the development plan. I just don't want to put ourselves in a position where you're approving something you're not really, you could be a foot short or too short or too high. So the whole footage, we're not the designers and we're not builders. I'm not really sure how they would apply that to the master concept plan. It could be 46 feet, it could be 44 feet. We just don't know. And this could have been done sooner, or even at the first hearing, this never came up.
Okay.
So as a reference, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt.
You okay?
Sure, go ahead.
If I can just give you a reference. So in the property development regulations that are before you, it's a 35-foot, single-family residential along the east and the north. And then as you work towards the center for the multifamily, it gets to the 60-foot high. And then as you run along 31, that's all the commercial buildings, those are at 35 feet. So you're going 35, 60, 35. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that, how that's looking.
We appreciate the clarification. We're trying to work this one out. Commissioner Rueda.
I respect Commissioner Pendergrass's, and that's why I hate doing things on the fly. I don't know if 45 is right, I don't know if 44 is right, I don't know if 47 is right. That's my consternation.
So in that,
We're going to arbitrarily pick a number, and I don't want it to be wrong.
I know this is a dirty word, but in that case, then you could remand to the hearing examiner on specifically the issue of height. I see Mr.
Can I
Rodriguez.
offer one piece of information that might help to frame up this issue a little bit better. In the outlying suburban future land use category where this project is located, the maximum building height by right pursuant to the Land Development Code is 45 feet. To go up beyond 45 feet up to a maximum of 75 feet, the applicant needs to demonstrate through a zoning action, which is what is occurring today, that that additional height is being achieved through preservation of additional environmentally sensitive areas or open space. But the baseline building height in that Land Development Code section is 45 feet for that future land use category, just to provide some additional information for you.
Okay. I'd like to ask the applicant to respond to this then. Go ahead, sir.
Again, for the record, Ken Galander, and concurring with Mr. Rodriguez's point is the open space and preserve of what we've identified as adding that additional height. We are providing more required open space. We're providing more than what is required by over almost 5 acres of additional open space. So we're adhering to the lead plans policies, we're adhering to the land development regulations. So we are still, would like to maintain our site development regulations to provide for that flexibility based on this conceptual plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant before he sits back down? Okay.
I guess for staff reasons, if it was, for some reason, my motion, I'm keeping my motion on the floor for now, but if it fails and another motion comes back with 45, then they would actually could change their site plan to take away some of the preservation that they already gave up to get the 60 feet, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So make sure to understand, if you take something, we're gonna lose something too.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying, Commissioner. So basically, you're saying if you take away the height, then basically the development then spreads out to a greater portion of the footprint of the property.
Create more urban sprawl within that complex of the development.
So Commissioner Pendergrass maintains his motion. However, Commissioner Ruane withdrew his second. Is there a second for the motion for approval as presented from Commissioner Pendergrass? Okay. I don't see. No, I'm sorry, ma'am. Now's not the time. Please don't interrupt. No, ma'am. Ma'am, that's not how it goes. That's not the process. Do not interrupt, please. Please don't interrupt, ma'am. It is. Please don't interrupt, though. All right, so we have a motion that has died for a lack of a second. At this time, does somebody wish to make an alternative motion? We have to make some sort of motion.
I would deny.
Okay, so motion for denial from Commissioner Sandelli. Is there a second for that motion? Okay, I don't hear a second for that motion either then. So is there a different motion? I would support a motion to remand to relook at the height. I know that prolongs this, but it gives a chance to vet it instead of dealing with it on the fly.
To me, it's not just all about height, and that's why I voted to deny.
Okay. All right.
Could I ask the applicant a question?
Commissioner Pendergrass, yes, you may.
To the applicant, I have a question. Obviously, there's some taste here to lower the height to, I think, staff was saying 45 feet. How different would the complex look like if it was 45 feet? How would you change your, or we probably try to get every answer today, how you would change your environmental impact to that property if you had reduced heights for the preservation areas, right?
Honestly, Commissioner, that's a difficult question to answer in terms of, we are at a conceptual stage in this planning effort, at this zoning stage. So understanding the opportunities that the Lee Plan and the Land Development Code allows us for, that we're trying to work within those boundaries. Market may dictate different housing types and different yield types. So
But you could actually build less than 60 feet. The 60 is the max.
It's a maximum, yeah.
You could build 54 feet if related based upon the heights of the ceilings and the type of complex you want to build.
Whatever an end user may determine as being an appropriate type of housing.
And what they're building next door on the Lee County side of Babcock too, so you're not based upon the market, right? Because that's north of this is going to be the Lee County side of Babcock very soon.
So to reiterate, yes, it is a maximum.
On the other side of the, right, on the other side of the public, on this side of the public, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm trying to visualize the change and how it makes multiple changes, and that's what I'm struggling with. So that's really where I am, and I'm not, I respect Commissioner Sandelli's denial. I'm just trying to get my arms around this, and that's what I'm struggling with. Exactly what changes might take place, what that might look like. So that's where I'm at. Just trying to put that together in my head.
Okay. So we do need to put some sort of a motion on the floor. Do you have an offer to make? Is that what we're doing here?
Speaking with...
I'll recognize you, yes.
Thank you again, Ken Galander, for the record. And speaking with our applicant and hearing that dialogue, we are prepared to condition to 45 feet as the Lee Plan allows.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Or the maximum.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Commissioners, then, does that change the discussion? Or is there somebody who wishes to make a motion then at this time?
So Commissioner Hammond, you struggled with, and I know you can't make the motion, but you struggled with height. What's your feelings on 45 feet?
I can get there. If that's what, if single family is 35, then multifamily 45, I can get there, yep.
So I make the motion to approve the item without the hex's additional 25-foot setback to the original set for the 25 feet with the change of the height of 45 feet.
Okay, so we have that motion from Commissioner Pendergrass.
Without? Is that what you said, without the buffer?
The 25-foot, this additional 25.
Okay, without the additional 25.
Yes.
Mr. Attorney, is that required?
Is that,
The 20, without the 25 additional buffer?
based on the testimony we've discussed earlier, the 25-foot, as the hearing examiner and staff indicated, is not necessary.
Okay.
The additional 25-foot.
So we have the motion and a second, and it's clear, Mr. County Attorney, what we're doing with the height then.
That is correct.
motion as it was
We will make sure the resolution reflects the board's motion.
Okay, very good. All right, is there any further discussion on the motion then that's been presented? Okay, at this time, I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections?
I object.
Okay, I show one objection. The motion carries 3-1. Thank you, folks. We have no further business before us. We're adjourned.